For this, I again prepared a little starting project for you. It is a simple project which you can start, as always, with npm install and npm run serve. And when you do so, you will see this on the screen. We got two dummy components here for adding and deleting a user, presumably. And when we click add user, we open an alert, a modal with add a user and the text asking us whether we want to add a user. And we can close this by clicking on the backdrop or by clicking on the close button. And when we click on delete user, we see almost the same dialog, the same alert, but with a different content, a different text. And therefore here in app view, I'm adding add and delete user, these two components. And in these components, I have my alert component added as a local component actually in both components. We could add it as a global component as well, but here I went for the same component added as a local component in two different components. And besides that, add user and delete user are very similar. They got pretty much the same logic in them, but they got a different template, of course, because that is where these components differ. And that already brings us to the core topic of this module, reusing logic and code. And for that, let's start simple. What can we reuse in a Vue application or in any web application if we think about it? Well, for one, that's of course our HTML structure and styling. This is something which we often reuse on our page. We often have different parts on our page which actually use the same HTML structure and styling. Think about list items where every list item looks the same. But we also often want to reuse logic and events which we might want to handle. And that's exactly why we have this components concept. With this core concept built into Vue, we have a powerful way of encapsulating structure, styling, and logic into a component, and then using that component wherever we need it on the page. And thanks to props and slots, we can still customize this component to a certain extent. And in the end, that's what I'm doing in this mini app here as well. The user alert component is a reusable component which defines the structure and styling for a backdrop and the overlay. And then I'm using this component in both the delete user as well as the add user component. And these components themselves, of course, are also encapsulated pieces of HTML code and logic attached to it. And that is really the idea of components. We have HTML structure, styling, and possibly also some logic, like here for emitting this close event in the user alert component, which is all encapsulated into one reusable building block. Now, that's nothing new though. We worked with components for hours and hours already at this point in the course, and therefore that's nothing new. But it is the core concept when it comes to reusability in Vue. But it doesn't stop there. That is something we learned thus far. Now here's the new part. Even with components, which are great for having an encapsulated template and logic, customization options with props and custom events and slots, even with those components and even with this powerful concept, we sometimes are left with some code which we would want to reuse, but which we can't share as easily. Because what if we have two components that have related or similar logic in them? For example, the user list component with a search method, data related to search, and a watcher related to search. And then we have the same logic in another component. In such cases, creating a new component which has this combined logic might not always be possible. And therefore, when using the Options API, you have a concept called Mixins, which basically allows you to share data, methods, computed properties, watchers, lifecycle hooks, whichever configuration you might need across components. So therefore, let's explore Mixins and let's see how they can help us here in this example project.